Welcome to the MoxStars podcast, the number one podcast in collectible card gaming, sponsored by Dr. Pepper. I'm your host, Chris Ritter. I'm here with my co-hosts, Jordan Garcia.
What up?
And Evan Kunai.
What to do?
You can check us out down below. You can find us on our socials. You know how to do this. You've listened to a podcast before, hopefully an episode of this at some point in your life, and you know how to find us. MoxStars Pod on everything, Linktree down below. Today, we're talking about tournaments.
Jordan and I just went to tournament. I don't know if you guys... We talked about it. We had a couple deck workshops. If you haven't seen those or listened to those...
The last two episodes, in fact.
Yeah, I'll put
deck
the
workshops
links,
going into this tournament.
I'll put the links down below in the description. But before we get into the primary discussion, I think Jordan and I are just going to do a little recap and talk about the tournament that we were just at, because it was eye-opening. Not only... was it eye-opening as far as competition, what to expect, but the shop. The shop was eye-opening. That shop was insane. Gabi's Olympic Cards and Comics. Shout out. She's awesome. The whole place is awesome. The community there, awesome.
Really surprising, very, very cool shop. It has everything you could ever want and more, and backstock of everything, comics, collectibles, statues, hyper-realistic statues, and...
I can't even imagine what it's like being a child walking through that store, because it is mountains.
Infinite worlds to explore in there.
Yeah, figurines, sculptures, comics, every card game you could ever imagine. They do it all, and it's such a cool shop. And
then now they've branched into hosting cEDH tournaments. It's kind of a new thing.
Which is where we come in.
Hold on, what's the name of the shop and where is it located again?
It is Gabi's Olympic Cards and Comics in Olympia, Washington. I can't even begin to tell you guys how awesome this place is. If you have a chance, if you're in the area, go check it out. Go support them, because they're an LGS that, even though I'm not from Olympia, I want to go there and I want to support them.
Yep. Yeah, it was a pretty awesome tournament. Should we just get it over with and talk about the records and then just go from there, so we don't have to beat around the bush?
Yeah, and then we can sort of walk through the games.
All right.
So who got first place? Who got second place?
If we're talking about between just us two.
Ooh, spicy.
Jordan definitely had a better record.
It's by a slim margin.
If we're both going 0-4, it's Jordan had the better record, though.
It's because I drew two, so I went
Yeah.
I went 0-2-2, so I drew two games. Which, yes, out the gate we did not do fantastic, but we learned a lot, and I think there's a lot we can extrapolate from that. We had a fantastic time, let's say, up front. But some of those games where I drew, I fought to draw the game. It was a matter of fact, I was going to lose, and I made sure that I didn't, so we got a point instead of us losing the game.
Yeah, I was a spectator for one of them, and I had already lost my game, so I had just walked over and decided to watch. And when they go to turns, they give you 2 times around the table. So once time runs or whatever, and then they say, all right, this is your first turn. We're going to go 2 times around the table.
Well, it's 2 times the number of players at the table.
Yes.
once time is called.
And so if a player gets knocked out in that or whatever, the turns that were expected are still there. That just gets redistributed amongst everybody. So I walked over and I just started watching this game. It was funny that Gabi came over to me and was just watch your body language a little bit, because you're nodding and it's giving cues to other players.
Getting hyped.
I'm getting hyped to watch this game, and she's just hey, if you're gonna stand here and watch this game, do not contribute anything other than being a statue.
Yeah, they were serious. They had official judge ruling and everything like that.
Yeah, and just watching this game play out, we learned a lot from just this one game, because one of our future deck workshops will feature one of the cards that we saw play out in the last few turns. But I just watched. When I joined in and I started spectating, I could see over Jordan's shoulder, and I saw in his hand dress down, just interaction out the wazoo, and tutors, and I was just why is he not winning? Oh, it was because someone draked your Malcolm. It's
I was pretty much gassed out of resources at that point.
Yeah, and so you were wise to like keep your hand up, like keep your interaction on point, because by the time I got there and I'd spectated, Jordan had already played his final turn. Like he didn't get another turn when I started watching. So like it was probably like a 20 to 30 minute go around the table before the game actually ended. But after Jordan passed and it went to this guy, and then it went to the kitty corner player, and they tried to win. They really went hard for it, like went hard in the paint. Do you want to talk about like what went down in those last couple turns?
Oh man, it's crazy. Yeah, so say I'm player 2, right?
Can we backtrack?
Yeah.
We're in the middle of we're at the end of this game. Who are the players in this game? Who are the commanders they're playing? Just to set the stage a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's a very
might be a little easier than being like, well, player across from me.
Yeah. So we had a Thrasios Tymna deck, presumably Razakats. Then we had a really spicy deck. It was a Falco Spara deck, which was one of the new Capetta commanders, the Bant one that goes infinite with Sensei's Top and one other thing that creates a counter, I believe. And
Devoted Druid.
Thank you. Yeah. And then the guy in front of me was playing Yeva, I want to say. Yeah, he was playing.
Yeah, so the tournament was 64 players. I, in my first round, played against the Thrasios Tymna deck, and we lost to it.
Yeah.
And it was Hermit Druid. Is that Razakats? I can't remember like exactly what that line is, but it was a Hermit Druid focused deck where you activate Hermit Druid, you throw everything into the graveyard, Narcomoeba comes out, and then you cast Dread Return by sacrificing 3 creatures you control to bring Thassa's Oracle to the field and win the game.
Yeah, so that was the player to the right of me. That was the kind of player in turn order 1. And then I was 2, and then 3 was Yeva, and then 4 was this Thrasios Tymna deck. Thrasios Tymna deck was packing this card that Evan was kind of hinting at called Sacred Guide. Sorry to spoil it, Evan. Which is this kind of new concept of, not new, it's actually a very old card, but it's kind of a new strategy we're kind of seeing pop up right now, where it's a mono-white alternative to Tainted Pact, where you're exiling your entire library. It's on a 1-drop creature, and then you get to activate it for 1 and a white, and then exile until you hit a white permanent. If you don't have any white permanents, boom.
It's just white card.
White card, you're right. Just white cards. There's no white cards except for this one. Excuse me. And then, so he lands that, or instantly, like, and this is the second to last turn, so it's him and then the next guy. And we're like, oh, this is over. And then
the whole table, when they see it, though, goes, what the fuck?
Yeah, everybody took a little turn back. And the issue was that the guy that was about to untap on the last turn had already resolved a Hermit Druid that was about to be able to untap. Yeah. So it was just one person on top of another trying to win, and it was a very heavily interactive game the whole time. It was kind of a slog. And at that point, I'd already tried to win 2 or 3 times. So I was just kind of sitting back, collecting resources and countering anything that came up, especially after my final turn went and there was, like Evan said, another 30 minutes. It was really just picking the key time to interact and making sure I pull a point. I don't know if like play style, if that's how we should be playing. That's kind of murky in the 4-player world of tournaments and stuff.
Well, you had already played to your outs, right? So like in your opportunities to win, like in your turns, you had played to your outs. And so now when you realize that you weren't going to have any more opportunities or any more turns, you played to your out. Like your out was to drag the game on, to draw it out, because you on your field had the Wandering Archaic, which put in work, which is unreal. And then I can't remember what the other thing was, but you ended up getting a Gilded Drakes to steal a Hermit Druid at instant speed or something.
Well, it was all because pretty much the biggest thing I contributed to this game, which was not a lot because I kept getting countered, was I reanimated somebody else's Wandering Archaic, and then by the end of the game, when everybody's throwing haymakers, everybody forgot to play 2. So at pretty much instant speed, someone Court of Calling, and I got to Gilded Drake the Hermit Druid at the last second, and pretty much stop the game from being over. So it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was a really cool game, and that is really the breaking point, the determining point on why Jordan did better than I did at the tournament.
Was it.
Yeah, that was
the moment.
It was just that was the moment. And otherwise, I mean, in my experience with the tournament, like
zooming out
to
a little
recap,
bit.
it is like first game did not have a great game. Second game had an amazing opportunity to win. Third game, it's like, I think this goes into the further, like the bigger discussion of like tournaments and how it all plays out and how it is luck based in a sense where, you know, your matchups, you look at the table and you realize that like maybe I should be winning this game, but like I played against in my third game I played against Winota, Braxis, and a Kadena deck, and I'm playing Zakama combo with Food Chain, and so when I look at the table, I'm instantly like going, yeah, like I'm like salivating because I'm so excited for this matchup because I've been waiting to play against a Winota player all day. That's like my key matchup. I love that.
You like another deck that's taxing out the board.
Yeah, because I'm already built to like dance around it, and it was like turn 3 I landed Devoted Druid and Swift Reconfiguration, but turn 1 Winota had dropped a Glow Rider, like a Crypt, Land, Glow Rider, Rogue Rack ship. And then I looked at my hand and I went, oh, shit. Like, I couldn't play anything, so I played a land and I passed, right? And it comes back around the table, turn 2 Winota plays Thorn of Amethyst, drops another creature down, and you're like, what do I do here? So, yeah, you're just like, I'm sitting on like a land tax and a couple other like enchantments that
3 mana land tax feels bad.
Yeah, it feels really bad. And had that not like that Glow Rider not come down, my card advantage would have been insane. Like going second, like figuring it all out, like would have been awesome. And it comes back around to turn 2, and I just play a land and I go, I guess I got to get something going. And I, you know, very unsuspectingly play the Devoted Druid. I play it out and I need mana. Like this dork's got to come out. Not like they don't know I have Swift Reconfiguration in hand. So like goes around the table one more time, and I spend the 3 mana to go for Swift Reconfiguration. And this is where a lot of people don't know what Ecological Appreciation does. But once you can generate infinite mana, like infinite green mana, any X spell looks scary.
Mm-hmm.
Anything like that does. So I just look at the table and I said, I have infinite green mana, like no responses. And then I go Ecological Appreciation, and I said, I'm going to pump like an arbitrary amount of mana into it. My highest CMC is 4. And then the guy playing Kadena just had like kind of like a buffed up version of it, and he forced a negation it, and I just went, God, this really sucks. Maybe you should have hit that Thorn of Amethyst with the force of negation, my dude. And
or stop you from winning.
Yeah. You know, it didn't really like stop me from like, I still like put together like an infinite mana loop and like stuff like that. I don't know if it would have like really propelled me forward. It would have given me Academy Rector. You know, like someone still has to make a choice on what I get, and my stacks at the time weren't like looking that great. So that got countered, and then it just comes back around. I've just generated infinite mana, and the Winota player just hyper focuses me because Braxis isn't doing anything, and Kadena is doing nothing too.
Of course, yeah.
To be fair, you were the guy who just tried to win the game.
True.
Yeah. I did.
That'll get you some attention.
It did. Yeah, it did give me.
It does tend to draw eyes.
I ended up getting 2 more turns. Winota just hyper focuses me, and after I get the infinite green mana, it goes around to them, and they swing, and they get 2 triggers. The first trigger is a Cathar Commando, and I just immediately just shaking my head like,
GG's.
Yeah,
this is the Winota deck, man.
Goodbye.
It does really well in tournaments.
Yep. And then the second trigger was a Ranger Captain of Eos, and when I picked up my next card, I had Food Chain Loop like in my hand. So I go into my next turn, and before I get to my next turn, their end step, they blow up the Swift Reconfiguration, killing the Devoted Druid, and then they sacrifice a Ranger Captain on my upkeep, so can't do anything, right? So I just go and I'm like,
they had you pinned.
Yeah, they had me absolutely pinned because the other 2 players weren't doing anything, and so goes around the table one more time, and Winota punches me again, and the next trigger they get is a Hope of Gear, or they play a Hope of Gearper from their hand, give everything haste, and then punch me again, and then sacrifice it so that I can't do anything else because I would have had the Food Chain Loop again, and
just
that is
locked you out.
Yeah, it locked me out of the game. It was disgusting, but that was like a really exciting game. And then I guess what it comes down to is like when you're in tournament, all 4 players have to be contributing, otherwise it becomes very, very one-sided.
Yeah, that is kind of the downside of 4-player is just. But also maybe someone would look at it as more of the interesting, complex side of it is there's such a human component to this where in a 1v1 setting, it is very like mathematic and set in place. These are the rules. This is how you win. This is how you lose. Where there's so many different aspects.
This is the politics of it.
This is the politics of it. And yeah, like if you're playing a Kadena deck that just plays land pass and doesn't get anything going, and you manage to be like, yo, I'm running a very efficient combo with a commander that can use a lot of infinite mana pretty well, like that is just going to draw attention, and then it warps the game. Like as much as you like, I don't know how much you can do about it. It warps the game.
Yeah, it sounded like your opponent did a excellent job in the tournament setting of threat assessment.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They just punched the hell out of me, knocked me out of the game, and then the thing is that I looked at the other two players after like I had been sufficiently neutered, like, and I said, when they kill me, there will be nothing left to defend you. They will then kill you, and then they will kill you. So we have to do something about this. And it wasn't until I was dead, and then the Kadena player played an Ixodron, and then the game lasted another hour.
Oh my god!
So it was
also like Kadena, like fuck off.
What a powerful card. I had no idea, but the Ixodron was an 18/18. By the time it came back around to them to swing.
Definitely some unusual decks, but I was also really surprised by the amount of like fully just gassed out meta decks. We thought going into this like smaller kind of comic stop, like I didn't know the level of competition we were going to see, and it ended up being 40 pretty well versed competitors, I would say.
Yeah, we thought maybe like we were going to be one of the or bringing gas. Like we thought we were bringing like.
You thought you were the big city boys going to Olympia.
Yeah. You could say that. Yeah. So like.
We didn't know what Gabi's was. We didn't know like how big it had been, and
Yeah, it turns out that when you're playing tournament, it is experience that trumps all, and you can sit and you can talk and you can like theorize on strategy and put together all these like different concepts. You can play thousands of test hands like on Moxfield, like you can play online and everything like that, like through Discord or whatever. But it is not until you sit down at that table in a tournament setting and go through that experience and all the little micro adrenaline rushes that go along with it that you realize how much pressure is on you, how much every little play is impacted. Every decision carries so much more weight under that, in that atmosphere. So that was like probably the biggest lesson we learned is we kind of went home with our tail between our legs because we thought we had hit the ceiling, and maybe we did for like our pod. Like we love playing interactive games here in Seattle and like with our group because we love the guys we play with. And then we saw how big the ceiling was, like how much higher can you go was really like the eye-opening part. Was like we knew nothing. It felt like we knew nothing.
For me, it's, I remember, there were guys that I hung out with in high school that played varsity baseball and stuff like that. And just, being out at like a house party one night and just somebody who doesn't play baseball but plays like gym class baseball with those guys and occasionally hits a dinger was like, yeah, just like, oh, I'm pretty good. And I was just like, buddy, first of all, you're not as good as the guys on the varsity baseball team. Those guys are not as good as the guys they're going to play on college teams with. Those guys, the best guys on their college teams, are going to play AAA ball and so on and so forth. You're an okay baseball player.
You're fine,
but you're not a good baseball player.
You're going to be really good in your Sunday league. You're going to crush.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what like came down to is now there is a clear-cut path. Like we talked to so many people at the tournament, and like by the way, the community like that Olympia hosts, they host cEDH every single week, and so these are like players who are just in it every week. They're constantly testing their mettle.
You don't get better by winning games against worse players. You get better by losing games against better players, and that's what these guys are doing.
Yes. And so like they're constantly like focusing and honing like their minds for that tournament setup. And when we went in there, we're like, well, this is the second tournament we've played in a year. So,
yeah,
we've
been real busy with work. And so, we didn't even get the time. Like we were planning to play test a ton, not even play test. We were planning on playing online for like the month leading up to it. And with all the moving and stuff, we never really had time for it. So
I played 2 games.
Yeah.
2 games before the tournament.
But it's really exciting. Yeah. Like I feel like every game in the last tournament at Marchesa, every game here, I feel like I learned something new every single time. It's I think it's really cool to see the emerging scene of like actual cEDH tournaments happening or not just instead of, but just watching them grow. I think it's still very much in its infancy. A lot of things are still getting figured out as far as how you turn the rules into a 4-player setting. That's getting fine-tuned. I'm noticing a lot of differences from tournament to tournament. Kind of like the extra turns thing. Like I feel like Marchesa was way stricter. You did not get 2 times the amount of people. I think it was turn order plus 2.
Yeah.
So like the second
6 turns.
So, yeah. So you would lose out a lot of the time. But yeah, I think it was like everything was eye opening. We did have, I will say, like my first game was like a 3-player pod, which was a weird way to start. Like I think that kind of hinders like a lot of decks, like the Tivit deck that's going really well right now with wins with.
I played against that first round at a 3-player pod. It was funny how we both got slotted into in our first rounds the 2 pods that were 3 players only.
Yeah, and like I'm playing a Malcolm deck with like Glinthorn really likes hitting 3 people and not 2 people. And like the Tivit deck, it needs 3 people to combo with Time Sieve.
Yeah,
so
it was turn 3 that I drew for turn, and I picked up a Dockside, and no one had played an artifact or an enchantment at all.
Yeah,
So,
like a Dockside.
I feel bad for you, man. That's
yeah,
the worst thing that can happen to someone in the world. A dead dockside.
absolute shit luck.
Yeah, so there's just some interesting kind of dynamics when you're talking about 4-player gaming, and we're just kind of, like Evan said, this is just the beginning. I think, like I always say, like come join us on this magic journey, because I think it's a journey that we're going on. I've never been under the assumption that I'm an amazing Magic player. I just really like playing competitively.
I've always been under that assumption for myself.
I know. But I really like getting my ass kicked at these tournaments and getting my ass kicked in different ways. And I'm just like, wow, I just didn't fucking see that coming. Or I do see it coming, and I'm like in a stalled out fight with somebody, and it's just like they barely eke out the win, and that's also really satisfying.
Yeah, I had a food chain loop where I couldn't win the game. Like, so I like had
you almost get there.
Gamma, and it was just like I was so close. I was just like so like the adrenaline was just like pumping, and then I come down to it, and I'm just like I can't win this turn.
Yeah,
and then it comes back around, and you see the insanity of the game that we played, like the last game. One of the guys we were playing with, cast a Cursed Mirror targeting Zakama, so that when it entered the battlefield, it saw that it was cast.
Clones against Zakama are so funny.
Clones Zakama, and then comes in and untaps his lands. So he casts a Dockside, uses the mana, casts a Cursed Mirror, untaps all of his lands. And that's what ultimately led to this like crazy dual caster Saw in half Dockside combo that won the game.
Love to see it.
Yeah, he was able to pump, since he had a copy of Dockside, pump that infinite mana through Zakama, destroying everybody's non-land permanents, and then
that's fucking great.
Yeah, and gaining infinite life.
Just rubbing salt in the wound.
How's it feel?
Yeah.
Like for everyone else to watch me do it, like the turn before, and then he takes the next turn and does it right back to everyone
for
else.
3 mana.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like it was such a build up to that point. I actually had a player concede, like after I had fired off the Zakama loop. They're like, "Oh, you win," and I'm just like, "We'll see." And then they were like, "I'll pick it up. It looks like you won." And I was just like, "Oh, I didn't."
Yeah, man, I managed to turn to an Adnaz, and it still wasn't fast enough. I still lost. I needed to get through one person's turn. My hand got forced because the Winota player decided to try and land a Blood Moon. So I needed to max out my mana so I could Adnaz. And then the guy right after that won a turn 2 Dockside MEL loop. And he was playing Kenrith. We saw a lot of Kenrith, I will say.
Yeah, the final pod was 2 Kenriths, a Cormella, and what was the last one?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. It wasn't the Nimrus deck. I really wanted the Nimrus deck to make it.
It sounds like your opponent did one of my favorite things, which is force you to make a bad decision.
Yeah.
Made you play Adnals on turn 2 when
You're right.
you couldn't do anything with the cards.
100%. And like I was a pretty awful Adnals. I think I got maybe 10 cards deep before I had to stop because he still had upkeep. He still had a turn and he had like a 2/2, so I had to make sure I didn't go too low. And I didn't get any interaction. I got a Pact of Negation I couldn't pay for, and that was it. So he just got to freely just go off, and the Winota player had fully tapped out and not really had to contribute anything meaningful to the first 2 turns. But, live and you learn.
I mean, that goes into just discussion as far as like tournaments go. It is about preparation. Like, and that is something that I feel that we obviously, we talked about a little bit already. We did not get enough. And so, like, what are we going to do going into the next tournament as far as preparation goes.
We are going to get to our hotel before the tournament, take our luggage off, maybe even have the day before, ideally.
But our Lyft driver was a total G, dude.
Our Lyft driver was a G, but I was running on 4 hours of sleep coming right off of work. And I was at game one, I was not in peak competitive headspace.
Yeah.
We got there throughout the day, but, take care of yourself. Drink water. Be ready. Also, we just got to get more experience. We got to play games. The crew's been playing a lot of cEDH, and we've been kind of just getting some more reps in.
I will say there is a level of physical exertion that goes along with this, and it's not just like you fidgeting makes you exhausted or like you bouncing your leg up and down that like exhausts you. It is like the opportunity to win sends an enormous amount of adrenaline through your body. And so you're sitting there and you're anxious for this moment where you're just like, everything has fallen into place.
You see the win in your hand. You're like,
yes.
How do I get there? Who's going to fuck it up?
Yes. And, you're just hoping that it just like, it not that it falls in your lap, but, it works out at the end of like when you go for it.
Yeah. When I top decked an ad nauseum and realized that I had 5 mana to cast it.
Yeah. It's like,
oh, fuck.
You're a leopard, like, preying on a small antelope or something, it's just like that adrenaline's just shooting through. You're like, that's the ticket.
For sure. You're in fight or flight response for like a solid however many hours you're there.
And it's like
the entire
waves,
time.
and it's waves, and it's waves.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, like when you get up from the table and you walk away and you're like, damn, like so close.
Also, just to like on top of that, the headspace you're in, the amount of things you're keeping track of, all of these triggers.
Yep.
On top of that, we're playing with like comp REL rules, which means you are playing like perfect gameplay. Draw a card. Don't do anything out of ordinary.
Yeah,
like,
they were
every action's being watched.
Yeah, they were pretty strict on even just like making sure that after you shuffle, you offer to cut somebody. Like there were times when they would just come over or just be watching over my shoulder, and I would shuffle because I was playing to tutor again, and they were like, "Nope, you have to offer." Like, yeah.
Notably, they didn't do any dice, no dice whatsoever, because like the potential for like getting knocked over and stuff like that.
Yep. And so when you stand up from the table after like a game and you think like, I'm just going to go take a walk or whatever, you get out of there and you are just like, your body feels a level of exhaustion that you just ran a mile, and then that game 2 comes around and you're right back in it. And it's just like, oh, I just cooled down. My mind is like not in like where it was at the end of game 1. And then you walk away from that game and you're just like, whew, I better drink some freaking water after this.
That's crazy. You're playing 4 to 5 games before you break to the top 16, which is the semifinals.
Yeah, and
in which case you're playing another game, and if you win that, you're going to the top table, which is another game.
And so this effect just keeps compounding and compounding on your body. Where it's the higher the stakes get, the more adrenaline runs through you, like the more fatigue you feel, and so how sharp you have to be competing at like the top
play
16.
Great at the top table.
Yeah, top 16 or even at the top table is still something that I don't fully comprehend or understand, but I am like that's the ceiling that I'm looking at getting to is just like how to stay cool under pressure. It's just experience, and maybe getting to the gym a little more often. I don't know if that's going to help or not, but
work out some stress. And the other notable thing is with these bots they're using to like organize these tournaments, decide like who's playing who in these pods. They kind of go off of record. So pretty much if you play well, you play people who are also playing well. So you are an uphill battle the further you get along. Like by the time you're in semifinals, you're playing people with good records if you have a good record. Same with the top table. You're playing people that have maybe not lost a game yet, and they're 6 games fucking straight.
Yeah, which that's why I was playing at a table with Kadena and Jaxus, was because I was already 0-2 for the day. So the matchmaking was not like putting me up against like the top players in the
yeah, it is kind of funny getting towards the end if you're not having a good record and like how the table energy feels different.
Yeah, it's a lot more
chill.
Yeah.
Lose your final game against a pre-con.
Yeah, it is a lot more casual.
I just opened this.
That's for sure.
No sleeves.
No one. There wasn't a single judge because I think like they know who the Owen whatever tables are. Whatever. They're not a single judge even walked over to us. Like I was like, "Do you guys want to cut?" And they're like, "We don't care."
Yeah.
Like, okay.
My last last pod was our buddy John that we met up with was playing Blue Farm. He is also a great player that had just a terrible day. And then the other two people we were playing with was a Nimrus deck and a Serral Realm Eater deck.
Ooh, I didn't see that deck. I love that.
And
deck.
I got turn 1 Root Mazed. It was pretty sick. And then Nimrus just countered everything as Nimrus wants to do. And then Blue farmed. But yeah, the whole energy at that table was just it's a touch different than the rest of the day.
What deck did end up winning the tournament?
Very spicy, because I will say Kenrith absolutely dominated this tournament.
Yep.
Cormella ended up pulling out the dub. Cormella is one of the new Grixis uncommons from the set called New Capenna. I wasn't stalling.
Yes.
It's called New Capenna.
Streets of New Capenna.
Get it right.
A very, very cheap gilded foil, which I'm sure they had.
She is awesome, and I'm actually looking at building Evelyn right now, the other Grixis commander, but she has the ability, kind of Kess-like, where when she dies, you get to return an instant or sorcery to your hand. But then she also has haste and tap for a 1.
This is Cormella.
Yeah.
This is Cormella.
Haste tap for 1, and you get Grixis. So she's a Grixis Dork that also returns an instant or sorcery to your hand. She notably combos with like the new Saw and Half combo and stuff like that.
Yeah, the mana is restrictive too. You can only spend the mana on instants or sorceries.
True, but that's really all that deck cares about doing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome deck. I honestly did not think she would compete that well. I mean, shout out to the pilot who took it there and was competing against 2 Kenrith.
Yeah, I think John had said that they were playing quite a few pet cards too. So they had obviously figured out and refined which powerful strategy they wanted to pursue, but then their interaction package was where they took their liberties and their creativity. They played Spellbind, or what is it?
Trickbind.
The
split second stifle effect.
Yeah, and they also played Stifle. Wow,
so, just straight up.
Yep. And so they were very on the nose with enter the battlefield effects, triggered abilities.
You had mentioned earlier that a lot of the people, it seemed like the vibe of this play group was they were fine-tuned to the meta that they were facing.
Yeah, these people play each other all the time.
Yeah, and there were people who traveled in too. I think tournaments are always going to have that draw where there wasn't actually a prize, which is kind of funny. There wasn't a prize until round 2.
There was no prize announced. She just said at the very beginning, she was like, "There'll be some good prizes." And she when someone asked, and they were like, "TBD."
Yeah, and so the people, I'm not sure who the person who won, where they were from, or if they traveled in or whatever. But then I think it was it ended up being $500 store credit, which in that store. Woo!
Oh my God, kid at a candy shop. Holy crap.
Oh my God, I probably would have went for that Darth Maul
I would have a hard time because they had statues and figurines everywhere of hyper detailed ones, and the further back in the shop you got, the bigger and more elaborate they got.
Yes.
And I was looking at the big ones where the cash register is, where Evan was checking out, and I was like, oh man, you could have actually bought the biggest fucking one here if you won that.
Yeah.
You just get this massive hyper detailed Darth Maul statue.
It was insane.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but
where would that fit in this apartment?
Yeah, we'd make room. We'd throw something out.
Yeah, and so price was $500, and
or you could buy a collector's booster box. That would be.
That's true. That's true.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at was people traveling in. I think tournaments are always going to have that draw. You're always going to have people coming in, and so that sort of upsets the meta in a way. Even though that there were these people, this group that plays every week, and then when this tournament came up, they all signed up, they all participated in it. There were still slots open, and you still had people traveling from we had people from Idaho come in, we had people from what was it
Portland, a lot of Portland people too.
Oh, there was someone from the South who came in. I can't remember. It was Tennessee. I don't know. Someone will correct me. John, if you're listening to this, put it down in the comments. I can't remember. But yeah, we had a lot of people. There was a guy from Germany who showed up.
Yeah, no, it was a really, really cool event, and I plan on doing more tournaments. Plan on getting better at this format, figuring it out. I will say, I think it really just does come down to table politics. It's and not the huge chirping and stuff like that, because I'm not into it. But it is, you're almost forced sometimes to correct people and kind of help them threat assess, because not everybody is at an equal skill level, and there's a lot of times where people will inaccurately assess who's the threat, and the person who is the threat is just going to skate by. And so being able to tactfully approach that scenario and talk to the people and kind of not coach, but I like to be very open. I like to just be like, here's what I would do. Here's the options I see on the table. Here's all the info we have. This is the decision I would make from that. And I find a lot of the times it's not the decision the person was going to make before I said it. And if I approach it that way, I find that, it's usually received pretty well. I try not to, manipulate.
People, well, speaking of manipulation, people respond better to ideas when they think they're their own idea.
Yeah.
Which kind of, you just inception what you want to happen is a lot better, I think, than being like, hey, you got to kill that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's the problem.
He's
Kill
the
him.
problem. He's the problem. Yeah.
But if you get someone else to think that they're building up this plot line in their head or this narrative where that person's the problem, they're going to be much more effective in taking down that person on your behalf than if you just ask them to do it.
Right.
Yeah, that was sort of like that actually happened to me in the first game where the person who's playing Thrasios Timna, they had shot a statement across the board that redirected a player to me, which was like they were just getting punched and punched and punched because they're playing black, and so you're wondering, do they have Adnaz? And they said, I'm not playing Adnaz. Like, he probably has Sylvan Library. He uses his life as a resource. Like, you should be knocking his life down too. And so that just redirected this person. And I just went, like, look at me. What have I played this game? I played like 2 lands and I'm sitting here dawdling.
Let me ask you, though, was he effective? Did they start knocking down your life total?
Yeah, they
There
did
you
start
go.
knocking
Hey,
down
man.
my life total.
Good play.
It is honestly, it is. I would call it the 8th card in your hand.
Yeah, it was a great play because later on that game, like, their life total got pressured like down to the point where we should have kept hitting them because they ended up winning, but they couldn't win without like the amount of life that they had. Right. So
Again, excellent play.
Yeah, excellent play. They did it at the right time, and there wasn't anything I could do at that point to like try to convince this other player to be like, look, dude, other than showing you my hand, I can't convince you that I don't have Sylvan Library. Like, it hasn't dropped. Even if I did have Sylvan Library, it's got to be a go around the table full time before it even gets to me, before I can start paying life.
Yeah. So add that as another layer of thought, of headspace that you're compounding during the day of not only are you doing all these things with the comp REL rules, playing a 4-player game, keep going game after game after game, worrying about threat after threat. And on top of that, you're also trying to maintain this level of cool that allows you to navigate a social setting with 3 strangers where you're really trying to eke out an advantage without really kind of threatening and like obviously playing a political game.
Yep, I've seen it fail too. Like, at the table,
It does.
I watched it fail multiple times while we were there. Just like someone was playing Kess, and like I just kept punching them. I had Ragavan, and I just kept punching them, and they were talking to the table like, you got to get rid of that Ragavan. It's too much card advantage right now. And it's like, well, I'm exiling instants and sorceries from this Kess, from Kess right now. So like, but they had talked the table into like trying to do it, and they're just like, no.
Yeah.
They're like, no. Like, you are explosive. You're clearly going to be the problem. They ended up winning. The thing is, Kess ended up winning the game. Had no right to win that game. But it gets to a point where if you can't keep your cool and you're trying to talk the table into some sort of political movement, whether it's in your favor or not, or in someone else's favor, you have to keep your cool, and you can't be like defensive.
Nope.
Like, you can't make it come off as like a defensive response.
Body language, tone of voice, all those things matter. Like, man, if I'm playing sports or Magic or anything and I see an opponent acting a little bit sweaty, a little bit thirsty, whatever, just for, not even to give myself an advantage, I'm just going to, turn the screw a little bit on that person.
Exactly.
Because they're going to blow up. They're going to blow up, and it's going to take care of a problem for me that I don't even have to think about.
Yep. Yeah, you got to apply the pressure because now you're starting to see the weakness. You're starting to see them crack a little bit, and that's all. Like, you got to be aware of those things, whether they're tapping their foot a little bit harder than they were. Like, you can see that they're amping up, like getting ready to like take the win, but you can see them cracking or see them getting nervous. Like, there were a couple of people I saw at the table that were just like, reading their body language. You could tell that they were setting up for the win on their turn. So, when you see that, you just got to, implement the table talk. And just see if it works out in your favor.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have a whole episode or so on table talk and politics and stuff like that. I think we could do a lot of deep diving on that as we explore it too. We're all just figuring this out for ourselves and kind of how to effectively do it and how to kind of do it in a not toxic way and everything like that. I think something kind of promotes the gameplay.
Yeah, like before I cast the ecological appreciation, I should have, like, before I allowed them, I should have said, maintaining priority. Hey, dude, the only person playing blue at the table. I will let you choose which creatures I get. Like, I will give you the choice of which creatures I get to keep if you allow this to resolve.
Yes.
And I will hyper-focus the hell out of this Winota player.
Yes, a lot of the time, if you are just... And I've been guilty of this because I don't do a ton of table talk. Is if you just freaking cast a spell and it's a scary spell and you don't say anything, it's just gonna get countered.
Yeah,
you're keeping quiet because you're about to win. Like that's the assumption.
Yeah, it's a 4-player game. It's a game of Outlast.
Yes.
Like, a lot of people will take the deal. Hey, let's not kill each other now. Let's kill each other later.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
it helps them.
Problem.
Actually, I had in one of my games, I had a notion thiefed a guy with a heuristic study because he was screwed on colorless he had only colorless lands, so he had only one blue option, and that was it. And so he was relying on heuristic study to get to another land. He missed like multiple land drops, but I had notion thief before he got any advantage off of it. So we're at this like kind of stalemate. But it got to a point where the guy going after him was starting to be clearly the threat. The Chainer player really started to take advantage of the game. And I was like, dude, you got to start letting me, because he was denying all the heuristic study triggers, so my notion thief wouldn't draw me the card. And I was like, I don't have any more interaction. I need to start drawing cards so I can stop him from winning. And it was actually a way to buy me 2 more cards because I was able to continue to draw off of heuristic study. So, I mean, it's just kind of those things. It's just like, you are clearly a threat. I'd notion thief his heuristic study. I'm a bad guy. I get it. But it's kind of helping everybody to be objective, and it is kind of pointing that threat assessment is like, yes, that stung, but that is no longer your worst problem. Like, right. Now I have this, which will now stop him from winning the game.
He has to pay for you have to start paying for the heuristic study, otherwise you give someone else 2 cards.
And I'm the blue player, bro. I'm going to get interaction. So it's just, it's bridging that gap. It's kind of helping people assess, and, you're not always going to be effective at it, and it's not always going to be right, but, you just got to kind of pick your moments.
Yeah, and I guess heuristic study is may draw, so you don't necessarily have to pay for it because they aren't always going to take that draw. But I think I just had to really open my eyes to the fact that nobody has the same level of threat assessment that you do, or the same view on threat assessment that you do.
We're all thinking about different things.
Yep, we all play different styles, we all play different decks, and that carries a lot of weight when it comes to the political balance of the table.
Yes.
So
I think it's a very cool part of this game, but I think it's also a hard part of it. It's a very frustrating part of it sometimes.
Because you think that needs to be answered because I can see what's coming because I've seen this happen before,
right,
or something like that. And then they don't answer it because they see other things as a threat. I can't tell you how many people thought Zakama was just this thundercloud in the distance, just like a storm brewing on its way. And it's just
just seeing a 9/9 for 9 in the command zone is terrifying.
If you cast Zakama, you're going to win the game. And I'm like...
Even though they have no idea how you would possibly do that.
Nope. I haven't... that's a big part of, the deck, was hiding my win conditions, right? So, even if I did play a War Room down or whatever, it's that doesn't inherently win me the game. I have to assemble the food chain combo for that to win me the game. But they would just see Zakama and to just be like, well, if that comes down, I lose. And so a lot of the interaction pointed towards me was very brash or responsive in an unreasonable way.
Yeah.
So I guess moving forward with tournaments and everything, I'm just trying to think with the meta we saw, what does the meta look like moving forward? And it's just so uncertain. I feel it's very shifty ground to walk on.
Yeah, since there's been a lot of options lately with all the new products coming out and everything being a little pushed, things become more and more viable in the cEDH format, which than they ever have been, which is actually kind of crazy at higher and higher rate. Look at all these new cards, new Capenna and Kamigawa. Those all just came out, and they're very firmly cEDH staples at this point.
Nimrus was in the top 16, and that was another point that when we were sitting there watching that deck, we're just It is an unsuspecting value engine.
Well, I think our biggest takeaway, and we do need to wrap it up here a little bit, is that you can deck building and picking your deck and knowing your commander is only going to take you so far. And that's what Evan was talking about when he's like, we thought we hit the top. You know, we spent a lot of time deck building. We spent a lot of time playing in our group, and we played competitively. But the next level is just playing and being a better player and having a better mindset and knowing how to balance all these things well, like continue your game plan. So when you ask like what is the meta moving forward, I just think like I'm almost leaning towards just knowing a deck really, really specifically well is what we're seeing a lot of the time. Like it doesn't matter. People aren't playing meta decks and people are winning these tournaments all the time. It's just have your strategy, know your deck, and then know what you're playing. Get better at playing the people and playing the table than really worrying about, am I playing the best? Am I playing the next thing?
I mean, I feel like knowing your outs and having good threat assessment will take you further than having an excellent deck.
100%. We still like Nimrus is not like a broken commander, but it made in the top 16 because it is a deck that gives you options when you make decisions. And so if you make decisions at the right time and you get more options at the optimal times, you're going to impact the game properly.
And you will win more games.
And you will win more games by doing that. So it just comes down to he was just a good fucking player.
Yeah, in a game where your inherent chance of winning is technically 25%, if you're winning 25% of your games, you are a good player.
Yes,
like,
it is not you should be getting a quarter in these tournaments.
Like I have an abysmal record at tournaments so far. I'm not necessarily a great player at the moment, you know? So it just takes time. You got to keep seeing things. You got to keep making optimal choices. Like Ritter's favorite style is making opponents make bad choices. And so if you can make a deck that, you know, focuses on that and you're still making optimal choices, you're going to win more games. And your percentage then goes up. If you're playing at a level where your win percentage is higher than 25%, that's when you're ascending. That's when you're like really settling into the tournament mindset. That's when you're starting to become competitive.
That's when you become really, really good.
Yeah, you're knowing everything. And some idiot at the player meeting, it was me, asked this question because they said no phones allowed like during the tournament unless you're on like the Gatherer app for life total counting. And I was just like, well, what if I need to look at my deck list and it was just for save time and tutoring? And then they're like, knowing your deck list is part of your skill as a player.
You did kind of get fucking roasted in front of everybody.
I went, heard that.
So yes, Daddy, sorry.
Oh, shut up. So, yeah, ultimately, loved it. Loved the venue. Will go back. Will do this again
Gabi's is
soon.
lit, and they do it weekly. And so this was kind of a bigger tournament for the weekend that they were kind of putting on. It's not their normal weekly thing. And so I'm looking forward to going back when they do them again. And I wish with Evan, I just think we are looking to ascend. We're looking to get that next level and kind of develop that mindset, that play style that really ascends how well a deck is built. I think we're great at deck building. We've done that. We've fine-tuned our decks really well, but it's just making the decision in the moments. There's a billion different interactions in this game, and that's what makes it so great, but that's what makes it so challenging.
Ritter, you want to go to the next tournament with us?
Let's do it. Dude.
No.
Not your scene, that's fair. I do think Catilda could like play well at a high level.
I mean, you're talking about that Abdel Adrian, that'd be lit.
Ooh, yeah. When you guys put it that way, no.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I respect it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to us rant about this tournament. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully next time we got some dubs we can talk about.
Yeah, we'll have some like little bit of like shorter tournament recaps in the future when we go out and we start playing more and start doing that more often.
Yeah. We got some spicy decks too. We actually got really inspired after leaving, and I got a new Grixis deck that I'm brewing right now, and Evan's got a spicy little secret not involving Sacred Guide that I talked about earlier, maybe.
Yeah.
But we will talk about that later and probably have some more deck workshops in the future for you guys. And thanks for listening to MoxStars Podcast. You guys fucking rock.
Yeah, we're going to go test these decks out tonight.
Yes, proxied up. Listen to the last episode, talks about proxies. Listen to the episode before that if you're curious about the Zakama food chain combo.
Woo!
Gabi's Comics and Games in Olympia,
Yes.
Washington. Go there,
Cards
hit
and
them up.
Comics, yeah.
Go there, spend your
Yeah.
money there.
Gabi,
Say hi,
Dr.
Gabi.
Pepper can't sponsor every episode of this podcast. Hit us up.
That is
if you,
true.
Want to get some traffic in
We
the store.
are amenable to shilling.
Thank you guys for listening. We're going to move on.
All right, peace out.
Bye.